Welcome, everyone. We have a fabulous show for you today. I am so excited to introduce you to Christina Cellier. She is one of the most unique human beings in the world, and she is the CEO of Zordix AB. She is also the founder and CEO of Maximum Games and Modus Games and the development team Modus Studios. Christina has so much to share with us about the world of gaming. If you're not a gamer, you're going to learn all about it and why it's important to learn those skills. So stick with us. We're going to have a fabulous show today. I'm Lorraine Siegel. I'm the founder, CEO, and chair of the Exceptional Women Awardees Foundation. We enable high-level women, high-potential women to reach their dreams. Why did I start this foundation? Well, I never had a mentor. All the way through my early career as a lawyer and then as CEO of multiple companies and even as a board director, I never had a guide to show me the way. And I made a lot of mistakes that could have been avoided. And so I wanted to be sure that women who walk the road less traveled, as I had and Christina had, would always have a group of women peers who would enable them to reach their dreams. That's exactly what we do at the Exceptional Women Awardees Foundation. And also, we love to bring you some of our thought leaders. Christina happens to be one of our advisory board. She has been an early and continuing donor to EWA. We are enormously grateful to her. And before I introduce her, I want to show you some of the products that she and her group of companies put into the world for all of us to enjoy. Let's roll that for a minute. Christina, welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
I love what you do. I love what you've done. I love what you're going to do in the future. And I want to understand how all of those companies in the Zordix group fit together along with that demo that we just saw.
Yeah, that's great. The demo that you just saw is actually just a little bit of clips from multiple games that we released earlier this year. So all of those games in some way, shape, or form had some kind of launch event between January of 22 and April of 22. And so Zordix Group is a company that is made up of 5 development studios that are actually coding and developing and making games, and then 4 publishing entities, which are doing all of the sales and the marketing and the launch of those games and managing those games throughout a global channel, because video games are very global, and so people play them from all over the world. So I sold my company, Maximum Games, which I had started in 2010, to Zordix in December of 21, and then became the CEO of the global group in late February of 2022.
Lots to unpack in that. Let's go back to the beginning. How did you get into gaming?
So my standard answer to this is I'm a nationally ranked Fortnite player, but that's not true. Usually that line is an indicator of how much people understand about the gaming industry, because if you knew much, you would realize that I wouldn't be able to be a nationally ranked Fortnite player and run a business, because you'd have to be a very serious player in order to do that. But the truth is, I've been in technology my whole career. I've been in consumer technology for the past, too long to mention because I don't want to age myself. But I got into video games, honestly, because there were some video game content that had been released in Europe through connections that I had that hadn't been released here. And so it started out just brokering a couple deals, but your personality takes over, and I like to build businesses. So I turned that brokering of a deal into a real company that grew from 0 to almost 90 million within 10 years.
Amazing. Amazing. Okay, so how many women are running gaming companies?
Well, not enough, Lorraine, not enough. There are actually only 2 female CEOs of publicly listed video game companies in the world, me and Debbie Bestwick from Team 17. And so there's not enough women leadership within this industry, which is crazy because this industry is so huge. And if just to give you a little bit of context around how big this industry is, there's 3.24 billion gamers in the world. That's huge. If you look at the size of the industry, it actually is larger than everything else that you consider entertainment today, like music, TV, movies, books. If you take all of that revenue and add it up, video game industry is still larger than all of that combined. So it's a huge industry and not enough women in decision-making roles or even in rank and file roles within the industry.
We're going to come back to the women issue because it is huge. We could spend the whole program just talking about that. But I do want to go back to your beginnings because you certainly didn't start your life surrounded by technology. Tell us a little bit about where you started.
Yeah, that's a good question. Well, I grew up in actually in a housing project in Richmond, California. So if you know anything about Richmond, it's not the greatest of areas as far as where you would assume somebody who's running a video game company would come from. It was rough beginnings, but you know what I had is two parents who loved me very much and told me all the time that I could do anything that I wanted to do. And I believed them. So I continued on and grew. And even though my environment at the very beginning of my life was pretty rough as far as the area that I lived in, and actually nobody in my family had ever even gone to college. My mom and I actually went to college together. And so she kind of beat me by about a year as far as being the first person in my family to graduate from college. It was humble beginnings for sure in a rough neighborhood, in a rough city, in a rough area within the San Francisco Bay Area. But I think what that gave me is a really strong work ethic that I saw from both of my parents and a hustle to figure it out, to be scrappy. Being scrappy and figuring it out and making it work with whatever you have has actually been a core value in every single one of the companies that I've run. And so you still see a thread of the hustle that comes out of the projects in our core values even today.
I love it. And that kind of culture makes you incredibly successful as an entrepreneur. And Zordix is so fortunate to have you at the helm now because you are going to be growing that company like crazy. I want to talk a little bit about the issues around gaming. And I do want our audience to participate. So everybody out there, please put your questions into LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever streaming platform you're watching our program on. We'd love to hear from you. And Christina would love to answer your question on the air. So do that for us. In the meantime, let's go back to the issue of people who are thinking that gaming is bad for their children and are trying to restrict their screen time. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I think people need to be good parents. So I don't think that it has as much to do with specifically video games as just entertainment in general and leisure time in general. And how are you managing that? So there's, of course, you're not going to let your child sit in his room all day long and read a book, right? Even if it was a book that was really interesting, you would say, okay, we need to add some variety to this. We need to get you outside. We need to get you doing something that's more tactile. We need to work on some broader skills. So I think that parenting is important and moderation is important and making choices and saying, okay, let's do all of these things. That said, you want your kids to play video games. There's so many things that you get to learn by playing a game. And I think our perception of video games is also can be, depending on your age and your experience with the industry, be a little off. You might have this idea in your head that video games are just like, Mario Kart and you're driving a car around. Not that there's anything wrong with Mario Kart, but that's not what you're learning within a video game. If your kids are playing Minecraft or Roblox, they're learning a lot about physics. They're learning how to build things. They're learning the ramifications of their decisions and strategic decision making in order to reach an outcome. I think that I could go on and on this topic. And so I don't want to talk too long about any one thing, but one of the key things that I think people don't realize about video games, which is a core talent that all children need to learn, is how to fail, how to mess up, learn something from it, and try again. And that is something that happens all day long while you're playing a game. You're so excited when you fail within a video game, right? Because you take all of that learning that you just had from that experience and you bring it with you to the next try. So, you know, the next time you try to clear this level that you're going to have to pay attention to the man around that corner, or you're going to have to pay attention to the fact that you need a sword for this. And so you bring the failure as excitement and momentum to your next try. Whereas, and talking about failure with your children in the scheme of a video game actually helps you have a really meaningful conversation with them.
Fascinating. You know, the second movie of Top Gun just came out, and if you don't know how to do video games, you really can't fly a plane nowadays. And so I think
true.
Would you agree with that statement?
Absolutely. They're so complex. In fact, there are some simulation games for like train simulation, different car simulation, that actually the companies themselves, train companies, use the video game version of the sim in order to train the people that are going to be driving the train, because the sims are so realistic. And so video games are so much more complex than perhaps what your perception is of it. Plus, not just your children, the average age of video gamers is 35. And so we're not talking about that's the average age. That means there's people that are playing that are in their 60s and 70s, and there's people who are playing that are children. So it's really not just for kids. It's a way for you to engage with your spouse or with friends, or, a way for adults to relax and get some downtime, but still have activity within their brain. It's really good for older people as far as keeping their brains really active, because they're learning something new. So new synapses are firing, and it can help all ages, really.
It's amazing, because my question was going to be the demographics of gaming. If you look at the demographics of gaming from the gender point of view, what is that distribution?
Yeah, it's surprisingly half and half. You know, it's the official words of it are like 48% women, 52% men. I would say that it really varies by genre, though. So you're going to have a lot more women playing mobile games than men. You're going to have a lot more men playing first-person shooters, or, really high-stakes tactical strategy games. Those are going to be more male-dominated. And so the percentages really change once you get into the genres. But overall, within the video game industry, it is about half and half. One of the things that we need to work on overall, though, in this industry is that right now only 30% of people of color identify themselves as gamers. So, and when you look at how many women identify themselves as gamers, as basically say, yes, I'm a gamer, it's like less than 10%. But also that kind of follows the normal things that happen with women and men as far as self-description. Men will describe themselves as a gamer if they play once a week. Women won't describe themselves as a gamer unless they play like 5 days a week. So it's not really true that women aren't gamers. It's just that they don't self-describe as a gamer.
Interesting. We have a couple of our EWAs who play with their adult children and are gaming all the time. So a little bit every day, if not more, which I love to see. I know we have some questions out there. So there's one that just came in. Let's put it up. And it's from a LinkedIn user, which says, the gaming industry content sometimes comes across as lacking in female empowerment or positive role models. How do you address that as a female CEO? And after your answer, we're going to bring up a little B-roll, which is going to help. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's a good lead-in to one of the things that I think makes a gigantic difference for women in leadership within this industry, which is the ability to make choices as far as what games are made or what games are greenlit. The video game industry works very similarly to the entertainment industry, where there's lots of ideas and lots of content out there, and then people are making decisions about which one of those games comes to market, which one of those games gets funded, gets a marketing budget, and goes through the whole process of being able to be launched out into the world. And so when there's only men in the decision-making capabilities, you're just going to have that worldview be the kind of games that get to come to market. So when we have more women within the industry, we get a wider variety of games that can come to market. But I would say that the important thing here is more than just women. It's really having multiple point of views in any kind of green light situation. So when we are making decisions on what games come to market, it's important to have a wide variety of voices in that room so that we can make better decisions. One of the things that's really interesting that we learned, and we actually learned this from a reporter. We didn't do it purposefully. A reporter asked me many years ago, like, hey, all of these games that we're talking about today all have female protagonists. Is that purposeful? And it wasn't. It was just a result of having women in the room. We were looking at games and really only looking at gameplay, and we weren't really distracted by the fact that there was a female protagonist. And so as a result, we got a wider variety of games greenlit that we could bring to market. And it wasn't even purposeful. It was just because there was different voices and different opinions in the room, which I think is really important. And so I think Lorraine, what we're going to show you next is a game that's coming later this year. It's going to launch on September 20th, but there is going to be a demo for you to check out on Steam. And it's called Solstice, and you will notice that it has a female protagonist.
Between death and transcendence, a chimera chooses death.
May the judge have mercy on your souls.
Sister, you're here with me.
I always will be.
They wanted yet another monster. They shall have one.
Brian! No! You must resist it!
Christina, how did this come about? And I know it's not out yet, September 2022, for those of you who are following this and want to play that game. How did that come about?
Yeah, so we get pitched a ton of games every year, right? So we're kind of like the version of a movie studio that gets pitched scripts to get produced. Same exact concept works in video games, and that's what we have here. And so this game is coming from an Italian studio, very, very talented. Usually in what we call core games like this. So this Solstice is a action adventure, dark fantasy, hack and slash kind of game, which is very beautiful, really great art, huge epic boss moments within the game. But usually you don't have female protagonists in that kind of core game. And so this was really interesting for us to be able to work on a project like this that's so beautiful, so edgy, and difficult. There's a lot of difficulty within this game, but yet also has a woman and her sister at the helm.
So how do you judge whether a product is successful or not? How does that work?
So, we get a lot of data within the video game industry, which is really nice because in that way, it's kind of different than TV and movies and books, where it's not as easy for movie studios, TV studios to communicate with their customers in the same way that the game industry gets to. So when we're making decisions on what games to bring to market, a lot of that comes from data that we have access to within the market, as far as market demand, how is this genre doing, how does this game stack up to other games within the same genre, what do we think it's going to critically be received, what number do we think it's going to get, because we want to make sure that we're launching high quality games. And there's a lot of data, so there's a lot of science around the decision, and then there's a little bit of art in the decision, right? That a lot of it is gut feel. It's like, is it fun? And fun is subjective, right? But we usually get a lot of people's opinions around that, which again is why it's really important to have multiple people in the room, so that you get a lot of people's opinions about, are we all having a good experience with this game? And then we personally look at, what our roadmap is and what games do we have coming out, and does it make sense in the context of our overall roadmap? So sometimes we'll say no to a great game just because it doesn't fit within our overall roadmap.
Which makes perfect sense in any company to do that. So for some people, gaming is an isolating activity. At least that's the perception. You're sitting on a computer, you're watching a screen. There are people out there, but not really people, because they're just things moving around. And yet you have said many times that gaming builds community. How do you reconcile those 2 points of view?
I am a firm believer in that gaming builds community, both in a general sense, as far as creating a tribe type community, and then in a very personal sense, as far as creating community between a select set of humans. Just my oldest son went to college, went down to UCSD, and every night he stayed connected with his brothers by playing games that they all play together. They even have their own, they have their own chat group that they call Losers Queue, because that's what they call each other, is because of the kind of games that they play. But they're really close, and a lot of that closeness comes from shared interests and shared experiences, and their shared interests and shared experiences actually happen within game. And so that's kind of a very tight familial community that's created through games, and connection. Even when they're apart, they can all still play. But also larger community. Every single one of our games, maybe not every single one, most of our games have a Discord community of people who all play that game together and all are connected through that shared experience of playing that game together. And they talk to each other on Discord. They become friends both online and outside. And this is very wide variety of people. Super Animal Royale is one of our most successful games. It's a battle royale on Steam. Very highly rated, very fun to play, and very accessible to wide levels of gaming competency. And in that Discord and in that group, there's women who are in their 60s and kids that are 10, all playing that game together, all communicating with each other on Discord, laughing and having a great experience together, even though they're all over the world.
Amazing. So Sweden is becoming now part of the year, your home.
Yes.
And obviously there's a culture exchange and maybe just some culture shock as well. Give us a little bit of your experiences in a different culture, and has that changed the way you're looking at your game development as well?
Yeah, one of the greatest things around what I love about this industry is its global positioning. We have games all over the world, studios that we work with all over the world, and specifically with Swordix, headquarters is in Sweden, so there's a whole team of developers that are based there. But we have a team in Hungary, we have a team in Paris, we have 2 in the UK, we have a team in Brazil, here in the US. That's just the specific Swordix group. When you look at who we're working with outside of the group to bring games to market, we have teams in Mexico, we have teams in Eastern Europe. They're just all over the place. And so although I do get to go spend a lot of time of the year in Sweden, it's really all over the world, and I get to meet people from everywhere, and also make sure that as we're looking at new content to bring to market, we always look at it with a global eye. We always look at it and make sure that this content is going to work for everybody in the world. That's not to say every piece of content that we do is going to work for everyone. We're working on a football game right now, an American football game, which is, obviously primarily going to be successful in North America. But the UK and the Western Europe is starting to like American football too. So we'll see how that one goes.
That's terrific. And we have a bunch of questions. We're going to put them up on LinkedIn for us to answer if we can't get to them all. So thank you all for your questions. I do want to digress a little bit, Christina, because I have to congratulate you. You just completed your MBA at Harvard. How on earth you did that while selling your company, moving to Sweden, dealing with raising kids, getting kids off to college? Why did you do that? And what was the impact of that on you?
Thank you so much. So although it's not technically an MBA, it is I am considered a Harvard Business School alumni now because I just completed the OPM program, which is the Owner President's Management Program, which is a 3-year program that Harvard has for people like me who maybe didn't go get their MBA after college because I was a bartender after college. I had no intention of doing what I'm doing now. But I ended up, starting companies, running companies. And so this is a program that they have created that's specifically for people like me who own a business or founded a business, running a large business. And they bring people in from all over the world to go through this very intense program. And then you get to meet people who are running businesses just like you are, but they're from India and they're from Brazil and they're from Czech Republic. And then, I think only 25% of the population in this program is actually from the US. And so I really love the global experience I was able to do with Harvard. Also, you really realize that no matter your industry and no matter your region that you're in, business challenges are really the same all over the world and across industry and across regions. And so it was really great to hear all of the best practices and expertise that the Harvard professors would be able to share with us. But I will say that I think that I learned more from the other people in the room than I did necessarily from the curriculum and the teachers, although that was great as well. And I got to live on campus a lot of time. So we spent about 12 weeks total over 3 years living on campus together, which was really fun and amazing.
What a wonderful experience. We have a very long question. We're going to try and get it all up on the screen. I don't know if we can, but we'll try and get some of it. Hi, Christine. I'm a woman in the TV industry producing content, currently working hard to transfer to the gaming industry as a producer or project manager. I've had difficulty getting my foot in the door. Christina's laughing because she knows about this, as I'm currently in an executive role and perceived to be too old to start as an intern, yet I don't have any experience in the gaming industry to start in the mid-senior or senior level right away. Help! Give me some help on what muscle I need to build. Thank you so much for your question, Paulina Butenko. Christina.
Yeah, thanks, Paulina. You should go ahead and reach out to me on LinkedIn, and I will, let me know that you saw this show, and I can talk to you about it. I do think that for women in particular, transitioning into the industry is very difficult. It's very difficult. So don't get discouraged because it's not working so hard, working well right now. That is very common because it's hard for women in the industry anyway. And then without specific industry expertise, it's even harder. So I'm on the board of a nonprofit organization called Women in Games International. And this nonprofit exists to help exactly this problem, which is getting women into into the front door and then also help them within their careers. But what I will tell you is producing on a TV show and producing a video game are actually very similar skill sets. Mm-hmm. So there's probably some things that can be done in a letter or within your CV where that can be highlighted a little bit more clearly to the skills that are required to be a video game producer because they're very similar. So we can get you there.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you're able to reach out to Paulina. So thank you, Paulina, for your question. There's one question that there are a lot of questions that came up. There's one more I want to put up about coding camps because I think that is educational as well. Tim from Santa Cruz, are there gaming camps where kids can learn to create video games? And is it the same as a coding camp?
Either one is good. The answer is yes and yes. There's coding camps. There are video game coding camps. I think there's actually video game camps in order to get your kid better at a specific game if they want to go compete in esports and things like that. But that's like on the playing side, not on the coding side. On the coding side, there are both video game camps that you can do for coding, and then regular coding camps honestly will have a video game component to that coding camp, because it's, most of the time that's what kids are wanting to code anyway. And so it's getting them really excited, and it's a way for them to get a really tangible benefit from their coding very quickly. So you can code something that's gamified pretty fast, and they learn a lot within a short term, like a week or 2 week camp. So yes, and you should do that because coding is the language of the future. So all kids should be going to some kind of coding camp, just like you would teach them a foreign language. They should be learning how to code.
That is the best description I've ever heard, Christina, which is just like they would be learning a language. They should be learning coding, and I subscribe to that 100%. Unfortunately, we have run out of time. And I would love to have you back if you would agree to come back, because I know that you're educating me, and therefore you must be educating a lot of our audience, and certainly providing goodness all around to parents who are anxious and worried about their children being addicted to gaming, which obviously is something that you do not subscribe to. And hopefully, I would say, I'm putting words in your mouth, but do you believe that people can become addicted to gaming?
No.
Okay, well, that's a good answer, and it's straight out there. So that makes a lot of sense to me. Christina, will you come back on another show with us one day?
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
It was such a pleasure to have you with us. Well, we are not done, of course. I will ask you a question, and that question relates to your children. If you have children or nieces and nephews and they are gamers, what do you think of that? Do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing? And give us your answer or your question on our email address, which is up on the screen. And also, I hope you join us for our next show, which is going to be all about something that is very critical for each of us, and that's healthcare. We're going to have two experts. We have Cecilia Aviles, who is the Operations Executive Chief Operating Officer at Sutter Health, also known as the Palo Alto Medical Foundation. And with her is Danette Andley, Senior Vice President and CMO, Chief Marketing Officer for the Healthcare Business Group at 3M Medical. These ladies are both Exceptional Women awardees. They are going to tell us about healthcare during COVID, post-COVID, what we can expect for healthcare of the future. And we couldn't have two experts more knowledgeable than these two wonderful Exceptional Women awardees. Also, I want you to be sure to go onto our YouTube channel and Apple and Spotify. Leave a great review if you like the show. Make sure to let us know any ideas that you have for thought leaders you'd like us to interview. And please join us on our next show. Have a great week, everyone.